Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. It's time to plant potatoes here in Maryland, Zone 7, getting towards the end of March. I plant potatoes actually 3 times throughout the year. If you want to subscribe and follow, I'll show you how to do that. But today we're going to set up container potatoes. That's a 20-gallon root pouch. I sell them at my seed shop, perfect for growing about 6 seed potatoes. We'll also be moving into larger root pouches, and I'm going to be setting up my no-dig garden, and that whole space right there I use for potatoes. So if you want to subscribe, I'll be showing you how to grow all of them. However, today we're going to be just starting with the basic setup for a 20-gallon pot. Now let's just pretend you're getting started for the first time. You want to fill your container with any quality potting mix to get started. However, that can be really expensive. So if we take a quick walk over here, I will link the video that shows you how to make a great potting up mix, really an all-purpose soil for your garden. This is made from 3 products from the big box stores. Again, the video will be in the video description, but it's compost, shredded hardwood, and it's peat moss. It makes a great base for growing just about anything you want to grow in your garden, and it'll save you money. All right, so let's get back to planting the potatoes in a 20-gallon pot. There are a lot of ways you can plant potatoes. So we're getting 6 seed potatoes in here, and I plant them about every 6 to 8 inches apart, so we'll probably fit 3 in there. Sometimes I put in 4, even more if I want baby or smaller potatoes. But 3 in here will give them a good space. We'll get a nice crop out of those. I plant them typically down 4 to 6 inches deep. Now the soil here's been well prepared when I got started a couple years ago. Potatoes are heavy feeders, so I'm going to loosen the soil up, and then I'm just going to add in some organic granular fertilizer, any organic granular that's well represented with NP and K. That means it's somewhere around a 555, up or down a couple of numbers. But you want to add in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The organic granular is a slow release, and I literally take 1 big handful, put it across the top, another handful, put it across the rest of the top. Mix it in a good 6 inches deep. If I was just starting in the root pouch or in my fabric pot, again, I want something about 20 gallons. I would fill it halfway, throw in a handful or 2 of the organic granular, mix it all the way to the bottom. Potatoes are heavy feeders. And then I would fill it the rest of the way, put another handful or 2 of the organic granular. I usually start with organic granular because most people can't make compost. If you have a lot of compost, you can cut that down to maybe 1 handful of the organic granular halfway up when you're filling it, or just 1 up top here, and then put in a couple inches of compost and mix it through. So let me put down my organic granular. I'm going to throw in my compost, and I'm going to just really loosen this soil. If your soil is to the top, if your potting mix is to the top, maybe you have to remove some so that you can get in several inches of that great compost. That's going to set this up perfectly for growing potatoes. This 20-gallon pot was pretty full, so I removed some of the soil in there and I just threw it into a container. I'll replace that or I'll use that in other places. So just to give you an idea, if we were just starting, we'd fill it something like that. This is a basic organic granular fertilizer. It's slow release. It comes in granular form, and you're going to sprinkle down 1 big handful, 2 big handfuls. We're going to mix that in a second. The organic granular releases slowly. That means soil biology breaks this down, releases the NP and K to whatever plants are growing in there. In this case, it'll be potatoes. At the end, we're going to water this in with a water-soluble fertilizer. Over here is my compost. I'm going to throw a couple handfuls of compost right into here. I'm going to mix this into that bottom third. And this setup you can really do, generally speaking, for most plants. One thing that you don't want to do with potatoes is they prefer soil that's a little more acidic, lower pH. Do not put any lime or anything in here. You don't want to raise the pH for your potatoes. Notice how nice and loose this soil is. And again, check out the video description because I pretty much make my own all-purpose mix nowadays, and I also make a lot of compost. But if in every video I say just use compost, that would really cut out a lot of new gardeners because you're not quite to the place yet where you're making a lot of compost. So you see that there's still some room here. Sometimes people tell you to plant your potatoes, let the green grow, and then you backfill, you put more soil in there. And in theory, you can get more potatoes that way. It really depends on the variety of potato you're growing, whether or not hilling it up or covering the vine that's growing gets you more potatoes. I don't do that anymore. It really didn't make a lot of a difference, and it was more time consuming. I had to save the soil somewhere, so I just do it this way. So now that we've kind of loosened up the container, I'm going to put in more compost. I'm going to put that 1 handful of organic granular. If you're worried, you know, the organic granular you can't really overdo. I'm going to actually put some of the soil back in there. And I'm going to take this a couple inches to the top. I will actually mulch to help conserve water. So now that the next soil is in, mixing everything through nicely. And this is going to be a fine base for growing potatoes. Now everything that you're watching is an organic preparation. If you want to use something like rock phosphate or triple phosphate, depending on how it's mined, collected, etc., some people consider it organic, some people don't. A small handful, maybe a tablespoon of rock phosphate or triple phosphate mixed in here will give extra phosphorus to your potatoes, and they do enjoy that, but it's not something you have to do. Well, let me just show you. So I use about maybe this much of the triple phosphate. You don't have to worry about chemical type fertilizers. They don't poison you, they don't poison your crop. You could use bone meal. Bone meal is organic. However, bone meal takes a long time to break down, and it's really best kind of used this year in the garden to kind of get the phosphorus ready for the plants next year in the garden. That's all I would really do, is I would mix the triple phosphate, rock phosphate right into the top here, and I'm not going to worry about it. If you had really quality compost, potatoes grow wonderfully in just compost. So, soil is set up. Let's dump these out. They roll out. And I'm going to look for, well, let's see. If I was just growing more for size, I would space these at 6 to 8 inches apart. If I want maybe some baby potatoes, I might put all 6 in there, and I would just spread them out, you know, something like that. They may not get as large, but I'm going to get a lot of potatoes. Now, a couple of things. You're looking for the sprout. That's called chitting. If you keep these inside when you get them where it's warm, they're going to sprout out some growth, and that just speeds up the process. So when we had this down to about here, and all the material was staying in this container, you could do that. You could plant them at that depth, 4 inches deep like I'm going to do now. And when the greenery gets up, you add in the rest of your soil. You just have to keep the soil somewhere close to it. And then maybe you get more potatoes as you bury the vine that grows up. You're planting these as soon as the soil can be worked. The potatoes can handle a cold outside of like 32 degrees, a frost, etc., because they're going to be down a good 4 to 6 inches. That's up to you about the depth. With this, I could go down maybe 4 inches, 5 inches. It's really, really loose soil, and then I'm just going to cover it over. But the timing really is when that green growth gets out here, it is not protected from the frost. So you're timing this so after about 4 weeks, when all the green growth is breaking the surface, the danger of frost is starting to pass in your area. If that greenery does get damaged by frost, usually it's fine. It all just grows back. 4 to 6 inches deep, cover it over. You might notice the blue on my fingers, the magic marker exploded. But then you just want to mark it. So these are Huckleberry Gold. Date on here is 3/29. That will just go right over there. And then I would water this in with any water-soluble fertilizer. You can use fish emulsion. I use AgroThrive. They're both organic. You can find AgroThrive in my video description, along with links to my seed shop if you want these fabric pots. 20 gallon is perfect for 3 potatoes, for larger potatoes. Even putting in 5 or 6 is going to work. This is just a nice size. I like the larger containers. I grow in 10 gallons and 5 gallons. But moisture is the key to healthy potatoes. We set this up wonderfully with the fertilizer. Consistent moisture is what gets you nice large potatoes, gets you a great harvest. So the bigger the container, the less you have to worry about watering. You have a little more freedom for when it gets warmer. Follow me, subscribe. I'll show you when to harvest these, how I feed these sort of mid-growth, But right now, I'm not going to do it because it's pretty straightforward. Just water this in really well with your water soluble fertilizer. When the green growth gets past the top of your pot, mulch it. That helps conserve water. And then you're just going to wait for 70 to 90 days worth of growth, time, etc., till that greenery begins to brown out and fall over, and that's when you can harvest your potatoes. Thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and please subscribe. I'm going to be planting up this whole space with potatoes in different ways. Again, thanks so much for watching.